Hello, everyone. Good to see you guys. Hanagashmas. So let's see here. Last week there was no class because of Labor Day, so we're back to the book with the continued uh, 10 rules in daily life or 10 characteristics of a life with key. So I'll read you what I have. Number 7, think deep and judge well, or translated to think deeply and see clearly, Shinru Meisatsu. Uh, Courage is necessary in the face of difficulty or disaster, but courage without good judgment can be dangerous. Decisions are difficult enough for adults who have a wealth of life experience. How can young people cope who increasingly have to make adult decisions in a fast changing and unpredictable world? As long as we live, our brains are in a state of constant activity. This activity produces measurable brain waves. The calmer the waves, the more relaxed the body and clear the mind. Calm waves allow us to reflect things clearly and therefore to make good judgments. We cannot stop these waves, but we can reduce them to a state of crystal clarity. Each of us were given the capacity by the universe to reflect like a mirror and to know what is right. Confucius said it was not until the age of 70 that he learned how to let his mind do what it will without risk of error in judgment. Perhaps in perhaps with key training, we need not wait that long. So that is a quote from Toy Sensei through Will Reed's book. And there's also another Confucius quote. And Toy Sensei was heavily influenced by Chinese philosophers, the Saigon Tong, of course, and Confucius. And I thought this one also was very good. And it says, by three methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. And that, just I thought played well with today's characteristic of think deeply and see clearly. Seeing clearly, they always, I work with a lot of managers in my company, and instead of when they see something go wrong or something, they're interviewing an employee that maybe have made a mistake or something like that. The most common reaction is, "Why did you do that?" I've kind of abolished that. I said, don't ask them why they did it. Ask them what they saw. Hey, what'd you see that made you think that was a good idea? Because they may be seeing something that you didn't see, or it'll allow them to see things differently when the thing comes up again. So, that's kind of like putting yourself in their shoes when they can explain to you, hey, I saw this and this is why I did that, versus just going, hey, why did you do that? So I find that related a lot with me when this quote says, not only, think deeply, but see clearly. Because, that's a common question, Curtis Sensei's asking when he, is, when we're in class, and Suzuki Sensei also did this quite often, is on Sundays, we'd all pair off, or we wouldn't pair off, we'd all line up, and then he would pull somebody out and he would have them cut bokken, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, just a number of times, just cut bokken. And then he wouldn't comment. He'd look to the audience and he'd say, so what do you see? Asking them to give comments on the person doing the cutting. And of course, you get a wide perspective of comments because there's all ranks there watching the person cut. And the person may be very experienced or the person may be, not so experienced. It makes no difference. He does this with everybody. And he's always commenting, hey, you have to see, what do you see that in that person that can help them? Not just, the worst comment I think you can give to somebody is keep on point. In a sense, because that's so Aikido-ese, you know? I mean, it's so easy to say, keep on point, relax. It's just to regurgitate those four principles when you see somebody do something. I always tell, like when I'm training people, before they comment, I always say, so you only have one thing to tell that person. One. Can't make more than one thing to tell them. What are you going to tell them to help them? You know, and that makes the people start thinking, oh, I have to really look at what's going on here so I can give them that one thing to help them. You know, that's something that I've seen Curtis Sensei do. I saw Suzuki Sensei do, of course, but learning, teaching people how to see things is a challenge in itself because you have to be able to see it, of course. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on this comment because this is a good one. I think you know, think deep and judge well. And of course, you know, the thing I read from Will Reed's book, it really talks. I mean, you know, calm the waves allows you to reflect clearly and make good judgments. You know, he's basically talking about meditation. You know, that's what, you know, he's referring to that kind of thing with an antidote of meditation. So, Ilaria, you're right in the dead center of my screen. I don't know where you are on anybody else's screen, but you're right center in mine. So I have to call on you first. So what does it mean to you to think deeply and see clearly?
Well, when you were talking about Curtis Sensei, he has people cut and then ask people to comment on what they saw. Paiva Sensei has always done the same thing with like a lot of things. And yeah, what you said about like teaching people to see things is like of in itself a thing. Um, she always tells us like kind of I've always learned from her if you keep one point and if you look at everything, you'll see it instead of looking for something and kind of like zooming in. You just keep one point, look at everything, you'll see it. And so we've practiced like seeing a lot, I think, um, in training.
And has that helped you outside of the dojo at all?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's honest. That's good. How do you think, you know, okay, I'll put you on the spot here. I could spend a longer time with everyone because there's only 9 of us here tonight. So we can have longer conversations and moving along quite quickly. So do you have a regular meditation routine that you do?
No.
No. And why is that?
Um, it's hard to find the willpower to do it. And it's always something that I also procrastinate on. Yeah.
Do you brush your teeth every day?
Yes.
Ah, yeah. So you've made a point of brushing your teeth every day. That's
Yeah.
important to you, right? Think about this. If you had the same discipline with brushing your teeth if you did with meditating, you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't leave your house and go, oh crap, I got to go back and brush my teeth. Maybe you did, but you would do it if you did make that mistake a lot of times. You know, you'd be like, oh my God, I didn't brush my teeth today. Or, you know, you could say putting on deodorant or anything you commonly do before you leave the house. If you had that type of willpower with meditation,
Mm,
just think how different your life would be.
a lot different, I think.
You think a lot different. Some
Yeah.
people might say no difference. I mean, it's all, you know, the thing about meditation is it's hard. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody be doing it. It'd be no problem. I'd ask, hey, what's your meditation routine? And you'd be like, well, you know, actually, I find time to meditate not only in the morning, I do some in the afternoon and then in the evening too. Like I said, hey, how many meals do you eat a day? You know, if it was like that, yeah, I mean, I was listening to this meditation teacher, and he was in India, and he said, you know, he was looking for someone to study with, And he went to this one guy and he said, "So you teach meditation? What is it about your meditation that's different than the rest?" And he said, "Oh, my meditation is not really any different than anybody else's. But one thing I emphasize is getting familiar with your own mind, because most people aren't familiar with their own mind. You know, we're very busy making other things, like distracting ourselves with our phone or TV or doing something with other people. But, you know, being alone with your own thoughts is sometimes not that fun. I mean, you know, it can be, it can't be. It's everybody on themselves. But, you know, that's why I think that's what's so challenging about it. And I mean, everybody has their own routine. You know, if you ask Kura Sensei, you know, or if you ask Suzuki Sensei what the routine was, they would tell you exactly what the routine was, and and their routine may not be your routine. You have to find a routine, and that routine has to be from you, because and Curtis Sensei and I were talking. I had dinner with Curtis Sensei last week, and we were talking about the consistency of training. Meaning, a lot of people train when they're in a bad spot in life, and they'll come and they'll train. And then when things get good, they'll think, "Oh, I don't need to train anymore." Kind of like the person who's manic depressant is on medication and they're all good, and then they go, "Oh, I don't need my medication anymore." Of course, then they get out of balance. Um, or you get the people who are, when they're in a good spot, oh, it's good, everything is good, and they train. But then when it comes something, a lot of heavy stuff comes in their life, then they have to pause and go, "Oh, I can't train right now. I don't have enough time. I've got to go address this problem." Uh, so it's a matter of being consistent. And even if that consistency is just 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, then it becomes, you get that snowball effect. You know, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But Course Ilaria, you know that. I'm sure Lillian Paiva Sensei has told you. So Lillian, so she said that you teach your students how to see. Tell me about that.
Well, they always have wonderful things to say about me, which I'm grateful. I'm glad that they're paying attention. I do try to practice what I teach to the best of my ability. And, you know, it's funny, when I got married, Eric, my husband, was a judo instructor, right? So I married somebody already in martial arts. And he used to say he doesn't see one thing, he sees everything. And of course, I was real young at the time and hadn't done anything yet until I started training with him first in judo. And I'm like, how do you see everything? You know, if you're looking at something, how do you see everything? Well, it's like anything else. It's training, experience, working at it. And going to the meditation real quick, it's very interesting because our dojo, up until the time I took over our dojo, was not a very big key breathing meditation dojo. I got all of that really through HKF. And Friday night, I was telling Curtis Sensei when he asked me a question that it's funny, just even this year, changing my mindset about it. Instead of me thinking, which is what I sometimes tell my students, is that it's like exercise. If you want to be in shape and you want to do well, you have to do it all the time, whether you feel like it or not. But this is the year that every other word I heard out of everybody was gratitude, including you, Charles Sensei, Curtis Sensei. Everybody has been talking to me about gratitude, and even people outside of Aikido. And that's been the biggest change in my Aikido focus this year, is I am now looking at my meditation as I am so grateful to have the time to be able to do it, to make the time to be able to do it. Grateful to have had the training to realize that this is something in my life that makes a difference for me and everybody around me. So when you first, when I looked in the book at this thinking, think deep and judge well, I'm so glad you changed it to more of the translation, think deeply and see clearly. Because judging well is not something I think of. You know, I've always come from the heart, the kokoro, you know, in here. And trust the instinct and the love and the connection to hopefully get me through the times when I need it. And I agree with you on the consistency, or I'm glad you brought that up. Consistency is the key to everything, whether it's brushing your teeth, pulling weeds, raising children, being a good citizen, and meditation. So,
yeah,
did I
yeah,
answer
yeah,
your question?
that's good. However, I do want to correct you. I didn't change this translation. This is just what I got out of the book. Trust me, I haven't done anything creative in my life in a sense. So, so this is, I'm just basically going from Will Reed's
Oh, yeah.
book. But yeah, I see your point though. I also like it by saying seeing clearly rather than judging well. I do too. Yes. Thanks, Lillian. Kiyomi, how are you this evening?
Sensei, I'm doing well, thank you. Think deeply. If I remember when something happens to think deeply, I think it will help me not to react and say things I would regret later. So I think it's a good thing to remember. I try to think deeply before I speak. I have never tried to keep one point when I'm thinking, actually. So I think I will try that.
And how would you try that?
I'm not sure. Maybe think at one point when I'm thinking. I'm not sure. This is my question. How do you think deeply? I mean, in terms of keeping one point.
Mm.
I don't know.
Well, I would say you must first start with your breath.
Oh.
Because, you know, our breath is what basically, yeah, you got to do that. Can't leave the house without breathing, Ilaria. Just saying, don't try it. Breath controls your body, your physical being. You know, like if you get upset, your breathing can become pretty shallow. When you're relaxed, notice there's no tension. Curtis Sensei used to use this term, the belt of anxiety, which he said is around your 1 point area, and when you become anxious or you have anxiety, it gets real tight. And if it gets real tight, then it inhibits your breath, and you can't breathe deep. So therefore, your breath is shallow. But if you relax your lower, your mid area here, your stomach, your diaphragm, you relax it, that allows you to take a deeper breath. And when you breathe deeper, then of course, when your breathing becomes calm, hence, your body tends to relax, right? Because relaxation is really related to your breath, you know. You can't just go to somebody and go, relax. They don't know how to relax. But if you say, hey, take a deep breath, you know how we used to say, they would tell people, oh, count to 3 or count to 5 before you do something, right? Because when you count, you tend to slow your breathing down, and that allows you 1 point. Of course, when you're tense down here, 1 point's going to be high. I really like how, the last few years we've gone to Japan. Shinichi Sensei, it's so subtle. He'll test you, and you think you're good. Everybody thinks, people look and they go, yeah, he looks really settled, and boom, he pushes them over. And he goes, no, it's pretty good. 1 point's just a little up. And then he'll give him some corrections, and then he'll test again. And he'll go, oh, see, the 1 point settled down. You kind of see it in their physical form, in a sense, about how they've kind of calmed down. I do like that because when he first started teaching, Shinichi Sensei first started teaching, I remember when he came to Maui for the first time in 2000, it was in 2000, I believe, he would say something wrong. They make a mistake or he go something wrong, and he's abolished that from his vocabulary because saying somebody's wrong can be taken as negative. And Shinichi Sensei is always about teaching positively. And so instead of saying something wrong now, he usually says, 1 point is a little bit up, a little high. And then he gives you enough kind of pointers, corrections, so you can get that feeling. I know that's a long-winded explanation there, Kaomi, but I would start with your breath, take a couple deep breaths and see how you feel, and go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think thinking well, think deeply. I would do like think deeply. All my energy is in my head. So I think it helps me that I need to, breathe deeper. So I'll try that. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And that reminds me, when you say think deeply, tend to people will say, oh, I need to concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
And Curtis doesn't like that word concentrate so much anymore because that's like what you do to oranges to make orange juice. It means like you're bearing down on something, and that's like the opposite of thinking deeply. Thinking deeply is actually more open and relaxed versus hard and, tunnel vision-ish. That's a word, but you get my feeling. So yeah, that's when you say think deeply, I can amend. Yeah, I see your point there.
Thank you.
John, you were nodding your head. I saw you nodding your head. Either you're nodding off sleeping or you're agreeing.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Think deeply as far as not focusing on one thing, but just trying to relax, becoming calmer and calmer so that you can see clearly rather than tunnel vision, right? Makes sense to me.
So 2 weeks ago, you said, you made a comment. You said, the next one is think deeply and judge. And you said, I wonder what we're going to do for that. So tell me, what was going through your mind there, John, when you were anticipating, when are we going to cover this? What's going to happen?
Since I completely forgot that conversation. But I mean, but I always look at these things like, flip them upside down and, because they are basically 10 rules in daily life. So every day you practice this, like brushing your teeth, right? And think shallow, don't judge well. It's like, those don't sound very good. Like, I mean, it would take you down a path where you get into a lot of trouble. So I would think the dichotomy of that would be a little bit like a better road to walk on. Or
right.
Yeah.
So you say it would take you down a path of trouble. Have you been down that path before?
Oh, many times. That's why, I mean, I totally get the think deeply, because I do not think deeply.
And why is that? What takes you down that path?
I think oftentimes it's a reactionary thing. I'm just like click, and then just the other day I upsetted someone. I made someone upset, and it's because I knew what to trigger them, and I triggered them, and they got all upset at me, and I was like, oh, that's right. And I've learned recently, like, oh yeah, I do say these things, and then it does upset them, and I've been more careful about that, but recently not, and probably because I haven't been meditating as much.
Oh.
I haven't been calm.
And why is that?
why I haven't been meditating.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm stuck. You know, I think I'm making excuses and just something is stopping me.
Yeah, everybody gets stuck. No question about it. I've been stuck. Um, I think if you ask anybody, they've been stuck. I mean, there isn't anybody who hasn't been in a sense. Maybe Suzuki Sensei never got stuck. I don't know. He was so dedicated. There's nobody more disciplined than him. He was like Mr. Discipline. But yeah, so it's so the first point, of course, is recognizing, hey, I'm stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I do a lot when I am stuck is I'll fire an email off to Curtis Sensei and I'll go, hey, you know, this is an issue with me. He's always open to that, you know, of going, hey, this is what's going on in my training, this is what's happening to me. And he can sometimes give you a little nudge in the right direction in a sense. You know, it's a good point. Or now that we have so many Zoom classes, you know, that would be something to bring up in a class. Because here's the thing, and you kind of, I saw that little grin that you made, and that was, I don't want to ask that question in front of everybody. But when you do ask a question in front of everybody, it's like giving a gift to everybody, because a lot of people probably have that same question, but they're too afraid to ask it, you know? And when they're too afraid to ask something, and as you get higher rank, the questions, people don't want to ask those questions because they don't want to sound not so smart. You know, they don't want to reveal themselves. So you know, it's always good to ask questions, you know, and even there's, you know, you'll see if you don't ask a question so well, and I'm not a good question asker, by the way. Talk to Fincher and Carlos know how to ask questions. They know how to put it just right, but you know, like myself, or there's a few others that Sensei will drill down on and try to get to your question. And that also is helpful to everyone else, because then everyone else goes, oh, okay, now I see how to ask a better question. Yeah, so I'd go that approach, especially if you're stuck.
I thank you, Sensei.
Yeah, so I know there's 3 people that don't have their picture up, but if they want to ask a question, just put it in the comments and I'll call on you. But in the meantime, I'll ask Susan Grigsby Sensei from Seattle Key Society. She's now in the center. She's dispersed Ilaria, who's now off to the left, and now she's in my center row.
Good evening, Sensei and everybody. So I'm not sure which thing I'm reacting to. I guess I'll start with the idea about having students watch someone else and comment. And that's something that we've also done for quite a while. I remember hearing that being mentioned from early on in my training, that watching is just as important as doing, and that you can learn so much by watching people. And so we've done that always in our dojo, and it's a way to help people see things that sometimes they do, because I think it resonates with them more if they see someone else doing it and recognize that they do it, instead of having me tell them that they're doing it. So having them comment on what other people do, I think, is really an important part of training. And often I usually just ask them to say one thing, as you mentioned. Just tell me one thing that you saw them do. And sometimes a couple students will see the same thing. And other times everybody says, find something different. And so then students also learn from each other about, you know, what someone else saw somebody do. So to me, helping people to learn how to do that is one of the most important parts, I think, of being an instructor, because if you watch a student and you can't tell what they're doing or what it is that's giving them trouble, you can't see it yourself, then how do you help them? So for me, teaching people from early on how to start looking at those things and discriminating between movement. And sometimes we'll have two people go up and do the same exercise or something, for example. And purposely, we have someone who's more advanced and someone who's not, so that people start to get a feel for what does the body movement look like in someone who is more practiced versus someone who's not. And what are the kinds of things that you can see about that and notice. So yeah, so we've done that for quite a while too. And I think the students have really appreciated it. And, you know, in the beginning, they're not very confident in doing it. And I have always said, just, you know, if there's one thing that you see that, you know, you think could help this person, you know, you can share it. And, you know, they get better after they do it. They feel more confident in just finding one thing. You know, there's not a lot of pressure on somebody to just say, if you see something that one part that one person has done that you think they could do better, that's something to share. So, yeah. So, the thinking deeply thing, I don't know. You know, one of the ways, techniques of being taught early on was, for example, to say, you know, you do you touch one point and you say, this is one point. And then you don't say it anymore, but you touch. And then after a while, you don't touch it, you just think it. But one of the things that they say often is, don't hold on to that thought. Because then you're holding on to the idea instead of, you want to think about it briefly and then let go and let it just be. So I don't get my mind, I don't think, wrapped too much around the think deeply part. I think a lot. So sometimes I think too much instead of, you know, I've had instructors tell me, you know, you're too much in your head. You need to just, you know, just do it and that kind of thing. So, so yeah, that's how I've dealt with it.
You know, that it just from hearing you talk, it reminded me of a couple situations that I was in. One time I was in Colorado at a seminar that Shaner Sensei was teaching in Denver. And this was right around 9/11, I remember, because in fact it was right around 9/11. It was because, yeah, right around that time. And he was giving a seminar, and it was 3 days, and him and I were the only two that flew in. Everybody else drove, of course. I flew in from Phoenix, and he flew in from South Carolina, of course. And the last day of the seminar, we were doing Bokan, and we're doing Ken 1, and as a group. And then he sat us all down, and he said, oh, Tracy, you come out here. And then he picked another gentleman from Colorado, and he said, okay, I want you guys to do it together. And we did it together, and of course, we were totally out of sync. And then he said, okay, I want you to, the guy from Colorado to do it. And he was off. He was hardcore, really super aggressive. Ichi, Sanchi, you know, really going really fast. And I, on the other hand, did not have that approach. I was more controlled. So I was like, Ichi. So I did it like probably slow motion compared to this other guy. And I remember Shaner Sensei looking at me and he goes, okay, I like the way you train, Tracy, but you have no kokyu in any of your movement. Because I was so controlled, worried about going really perfectly, you know. So that reminds me when Rigsby Sensei said that, you know, you get two people up there and they do it together, or, you know, you can really see especially if you're teaching and you want to play off the extremes so to speak. So people can see, oh wow, look at the extreme in these people's movement. They're doing the exact same movement, but they're extremely at one end or the other. And I was, of course, at the very controlled end of things that, Curtis Sensei disliked when I got here. He really didn't like that. Totally controlled. He'd always look at me and go, come on, where's it at, Tracy? And I'd be like, it's right here. No, let go. And then the second one was when, let's see, it was, lost my train of thought. I'm trying to remember what exactly it was. I'll have to come back to it. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, we had a couple other people join while we were discussing. I know Linda is here, Linda Sasaki Sensei. How would you like to talk about this subject?
What's the subject?
Did you come in late?
Yeah, I'm coming directly from work, and
I understand. Well, it's number 7, and it's think deeply and see clearly.
Is this relation to everyday life?
Yeah,
Aikido?
Characteristics of life with Ki. I did see that you did come in late, and I kind of surprised you with this, though.
I've always come in late to your class. That's why I asked you if it was okay.
It is okay. It is okay.
Okay. Think deeply. I don't know if I want to think deeply. I would rather just feel it. If we do any kind of Aikido movement and whatnot. And if I get corrected, it's like I repeat the motion and I try to remember what it felt like. Seeing clearly, of course, I think I agree with you that if you are calm and you are not hyperventilatedly excited, you should be able to see everything. It's just a matter of training yourself, getting that way when that hopefully terrible thing that might happen, that's an emergency. But yeah, thinking deeply, I don't know if I want to think too deeply. I get too focused and the little bit, it's like, just that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. That, tuned into just that. Yes. And then you're only seeing that, not anything else. And that reminded me of exactly what Susan Grigsby Sensei said about, talking about, I think about one point and then I let it go. And it reminds me because I was in Maui for a visit. And this is when the dojo had been torn down and they were training at the Hongwanji temple. So we're having special classes there. And I was not too high ranked. I think I was shown up. And Curtis Sensei, of course, calls me up to do a key test with him. And the whole time up there, I'm so nervous because I'm in front of everybody, all these Maui people who I don't know. And of course, all my members who were with me. And as I'm walking up to the front, I'm going, keep on point, keep on point, keep on point, under my breath, keep on point, keep on point. I'm just totally just repeating that over and over again as I walk up there. I thought nobody could hear me. Of course, nobody in the audience heard me, but Curtis, when I got right up next to Curtis, he must have heard like the last two I said. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, does anybody hear what else he's saying? And they went, no, he's saying keep one point over and over again. Tracy, don't do that. You keep one point and then you let it go. Because I was so focused on wanting to pass the key test, wanting to keep one point in front of everybody, that I just kept repeating it under my breath the whole time so I wouldn't forget. So I see both your guys' points when you say that, because I was totally guilty of that myself, you know, in doing that, because I didn't have any other way of, I was so new to, you know, key training and, you know, doing this kind of thing in front of big people, crowds, you know, I'm the guy who doesn't smile when I get up in front of the class, you know, I was so serious. So yeah, come a long way since then. Anything else, Linda?
Anything else? But I used to know someone that instead of keep on point, you could actually see him taking a test and he's going half, 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 half. And we used to go up there and tell him, stop that.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
That's
So,
also a common verbiage people say, I think.
Yeah, and it's like that period in your one point, you know. That's what I am trying not to do, because that's something that, you know, your white belt mentality does. And then as you get better, hopefully, you know, you just let it go. So usually when my students ask me, what do you think of when you meditate? And I tell them, nothing.
Really? You don't think about anything?
Yeah. You know, everything just settles. And you go into that Epicurean platitudes.
That is super advanced.
So,
after that.
no, but you know, I can't tell the difference because I told you the story when I face planted into the table, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I don't know if I'm zoning out totally and falling asleep, or I'm actually going into a good meditation. Sometimes it's
right.
Yeah. So how's this question? Do I have to be somewhat conscious, having a goal in mind when to meditate? So that doesn't happen?
You know, that's something you should ask Curtis Sensei on a Sunday class or Wednesday class. I think that'd be a good question. He would like that.
Yeah, I know he said it's okay to fall asleep.
Yeah.
But, you know, face planting in the table is kind of painful.
Yes, that's true. Well, Jack, you don't have your camera, I don't think, but you did comment that you'd like to speak. So,
hello, Sensei.
Hello.
Yeah, I apologize for not having my my video set up. I don't have the internet for it.
No problem. No problem.
Anyway, I've just been thinking about what everybody's been saying, and I think John he started to say something, you know, and I've been thinking about it, is that when the waves of our mind are, you know, erratic and not, when we're not calm, that we can't think deeply and we don't have good judgment. Those two things are kind of mutually exclusive, you know, and we can't see clearly. We get hyper focused, you know, and I've just been thinking about that, and it actually kind of directly relates to what Ilaria said, and my experience with Paiva Sensei, and how she you know, she'll make an example. No, it sounds mean to make an example out of some person, but there'll be an exercise or a technique that she'll ask everybody to comment on. You know, she'll have that person do it, and then she'll ask each individual class member, you know, to give feedback, and not just feedback, but really like look at the thing they need to be told, like what was said earlier, you know, what's the one thing you could say, and how that it's, you know, I'm realizing now in this class how much of awareness training that was, you know, how she was teaching us to think deeply and see clearly, because, you know, she always says, you know, just keep on point and look at everything. Just look at everything. Don't look at one thing, look at everything. Because if you look at one thing, you won't see the real problem.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's I think really good awareness training, by watching somebody and being able to kind of disseminate what's going on with them, because you can't just pick out one thing. You gotta look at the whole picture, and I think that's common with a lot of things. How's your meditation practice, Jack?
It's much better since quarantine.
What a great opportunity.
Yep, I'm grateful for that. You know, it's maybe been, you know, it seems like a common trend, but it's been slacking recently. So maybe I need to find a new motivation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, being motivated is one thing, but doing it just to do it is another. I just do it to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, what's helped me get through periods of time is just, you know, setting that time, and maybe, you know, I'll set 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. You know, I was a firm 1 hour guy for probably 12, probably 15 years, 1 hour, no matter what. And then I got to where, okay, let's just do 20, 30 minutes in the morning and 20, 30 minutes in the evening, you know, or 10 minutes during lunch, or, you know, whatever. I kind of mixed it up that way. And I felt I had better results of having a 30-minute period in the morning and a 30-minute period in the evening. Of course, maybe some people can't do it twice a day, but if you can, it's always something that you can add into. I mean, and like, you know, Curtis Sensei was really big, you know, just do 10 minutes. Yeah, you know, he even did this one, he did, you know, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out for 5 minutes. You know, he's got all these little, you know, little things that he would tell people to kind of inspire them. And, you know, of course, Suzuki Sensei was the "you must breathe 1 hour every day" type guy. I just think you got to find your own rhythm with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I wanted, you know, you just said that, and I think earlier somebody said something about, you know, repeating that to their students over and over, you know, breathe every day, and how that doesn't, you know, it feels like that doesn't have any impact. But I got to say that this reminder, you know, this class, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's really useful, I guess, valuable for me, because, you know, because we're not going to regular class, and I don't have, you know, Sensei reminding me, you know, key breathe at home, key breathe at home. And I hear it now, and I'm kind of reminded, and it's not just hearing, you know, oh, go and key breathe, because I tell that to myself all the time, but it's hearing, you know, just make a habit out of it, you know, and just do it 5 minutes a day. And it's I just wanted to say I definitely got something out of that, you know, this class.
Oh, good, thanks. That's nice to hear. You know, it's so funny, when I first came to visit, not the first time I came to visit, but when I was visiting Maui, and it reminded me of the time when they were training at the Hongwanji. And so Suzuki Sensei was teaching this day class for us, because Curtis Sensei was working, and then Curtis Sensei would teach the evening class. So every day we come to this dojo at the Hongwanji, and Suzuki Sensei, of course, would be up in the changing room area, and I would, of course, get there early, go up and hang out with him, chat with him, and then there was 15 of us that had made the journey from Arizona. 15 of the students in Arizona came to Maui to train for a week. And so Suzuki Sensei up there, and it's the very first day class, and he's there. And there's only, I believe, Reina had come from the Maui dojo to join us. Otherwise, it was just us 15. And Suzuki Sensei's he said, okay, what do you want to do today? And I'm like, oh, Sensei, whatever you want to do, that'd be great. You know, I didn't want to tell him what we wanted to do. I just said, do whatever you do, because we were just happy to be in Maui training with them. So he said, okay, go down and I want you to lead the breathing. And I went, you want me to lead the breathing? Aren't you going to do that? I did not want to lead the breathing. Not with him in the room, that is, because I wasn't used to doing leading breathing. I didn't lead breathing in Arizona. We didn't do that. Since they led the breathing in the class, nobody else led the breathing, and so of course, so hi sensei, I'll do that, and I get up there in front of class. He bows in, and then he hands it over to me to do the key breathing, and he sits over on the side to breathe with us. So he's breathing, and I'm going. I was so nervous. It was horrifying. And I don't know the timing. I don't know anything about, I don't know, there's no clock in the room. I'm not sure how long we're supposed to even be doing it in front of the class. I'm just kind of peeking out, looking at Suzuki Sensei, and Suzuki Sensei is just breathing along, like everybody else. And finally I just said, well, let's wrap it up. And I just wrapped it up out of, just gut feeling. Went over there and, he taught the class. After the class, we go up to there and I'm helping him change. And I said, oh, Sensei, I said, was the breathing okay? He's like, yep, fine, no problem. No comment, yes or no, maybe do this to improve. It was just, yeah, that was fine, let's go. Either I did a really bad job and he didn't want to straighten me out, or I did an okay job and it was passable. I don't know which. But, breathing and meditation, two sides of the same coin, of course. If you don't feel like breathing, do meditation. But I always tell the beginners, I always ask them, so which do you prefer, breathing or meditation? And literally, I'll get a 50-50 spot. Half the students like breathing, the other half like meditation. And in fact, Prakash is really, Prakash does not like breathing. He's a long-term meditator guy. And he always, literally will come up with, Kura Sensei will hold a question and answer with breathing and meditation, and he'll always ask a question about breathing. Kura Sensei will help him out and correct him. And he'll be like, God, I told him that the other day too, or I told him that last time. But it's a constant building. So I always say, practice what you don't like. If you don't like breathing, do breathing. If you don't like meditation, do meditation. Because you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you start working on what you're uncomfortable with, alas, someday it will be comfortable. It may take a long time, but I'm not so bad now at leading the breathing. I was very uncomfortable with it, but now I'm okay with it and I can do it. So anybody else have anything to comment? I think we covered everybody that wanted to talk. I do have a story. The story is based on this principle in a sense, but it's also based, if you were in the last class, Sunday's class, Charles Boyer Sensei asked a really good question about key testing and about how some dojos, how everybody in Oahu, Nonaka Sensei's there, Charles Boyer Sensei's there, Linda Sasaki Sensei's there, all these teachers are there, but yet they always wait for Curtis Sensei to come and give certain tests, even though they're qualified to give the test. They wait for him to do it. And Curtis Sensei talked about, being in the presence of the teacher and being able to, kind of up the level a little bit when he's testing you. Kind of like when you get certain ranks, you have to go to Japan to get them. So this is in line with that question, which Curtis Sensei kind of commented on. This is a story from a different lineage. And it says, a lama in England once told us about an interaction with a famous and somewhat controversial teacher in Tibet. This lama had heard about this teacher and yearned to study with him. Fortunately, later in his training, this teacher came to England for a 2-week visit to his monastery. The Lama submitted a formal request for a meeting. When no reply, not even an acknowledgement, came back, he resubmitted his second request. He hesitated to make a third request, but so deep was his yearning that he did so anyway. Again, no reply. The teacher was set to leave the following morning. That night, the Lama sat in his room wondering what to do. He desperately wanted to see this teacher, but was hesitant to violate monastic protocols. He was so agitated he could not sleep. A knock sounded on his door. He opened it, curious to see who would come to see him so late at night. One of the teacher's attendants told him to come. Elated, he followed the attendant and was shown to the teacher's room. The teacher was busy in conversation with another monk, so he sat down and waited. Eventually, the monk left. Protocol demanded that the teacher initiate any conversation, so the Lama waited for leave to speak. The teacher just looked at him, but said nothing. The Lama couldn't ask any of the questions that were burning in his heart. The two sat in silence for about 15 minutes. Then the teacher motioned for him to leave. He was devastated. He left and returned to his room where he sobbed with grief and raged with anger. Eventually, totally exhausted, he fell asleep. When he awoke the next day, he started his morning meditation practice and found that his meditation had changed completely. To this day, he regards that teacher as one of the most important teachers, even though he only had this one meeting and never exchanged a word. So with that, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good week.